Okay, hello, this is a pretty straightforward, pretty quick Witchcrafter deck profile for post-September ban list. I built this today, thought it was quite fun, and I'll be taking this to locals, so it's built for kind of mid to sort of lower end of the competitive tier. This is nowhere near tier 1. Probably put it, I don't know, somewhere in the middle to the bottom of tier 2. It's not as good as Infernoble, which is what I have been playing, but it is way more fun in my personal opinion. And yeah, so I'll be showing you guys the main deck, the extra deck, and the side deck. And let's jump straight into it. Okay, so the first monster we're playing 3 copies of Witchcrafter Shmieta. She is your basically your best normal summon. So the main goal of her is all the lower level Witchcrafters have the same effect, which is you can discard one spell and tribute them to special summon one Witchcrafter monster from your deck, and then you can banish them, and then that's where their differing effects come in. So with Shmieta, you can send any Witchcraft card from your deck to the graveyard, so you can set up Pitore for a draw, or you can send a spell card to add to your hand during the end phase. So yeah, she's definitely one of the ones that you want to have. The tag out effect is a quick effect, so definitely bear that in mind. It's the kind of thing that you really want to abuse when you're playing this deck. So she's really, really good. One of your next best normal summons is probably the aforementioned Witchcrafter Pitore. We're playing 2 copies of her. Same floating effect as Shmieta. Like I said, they all have that. And then her effect when you banish her is you draw a card and then discard a Witchcrafter card. You send a Witchcrafter card from your hand to the grave, but if you have none, you have to banish your entire hand. So definitely just be careful on your resource management. When you're using her, you should always have a Witchcraft card in hand to discard those. So should all be fine. Nice little bit of hand cycling and hand management there. Then we are playing Witchcrafter Jenny. This is the one that you should know from Duel Links if you play that. Same tag out effect, and you can banish this card to add a Witchcrafter spell. Sorry, you don't add a Witchcraft spell, you banish herself and a Witchcraft spell from your grave, and then the effect becomes that spell's effect. So you can banish the Rotor to search again, you can banish the Reborn to reborn another. She has quite a few good uses, and she's another of your valid normal summons. And then we're playing the one Witchcrafter Pottery. She's kind of a defensive play. She adds a Witchcrafter card from your graveyard to your hand, but only if you have no cards in your hand. So she's kind of your recovery monster, hence why I'm only playing the 1 copy, but I do think she is worth running, unlike some other lists that you may see out there on the internet. Then on to the high levels. These are the ones that you are summoning with your tag out effects. Really, really good, and they all have their own sort of board control kind of effects. So your first one is the Witchcrafter Hain. She protects your other spellcasters from targeting from card effects, so it can't be impermed, things like that. So that's really, really nice. And then you can discard a spell to target a card on the field and destroy it. So a bit of board control there as well. And she's one of your bigger ones with 2400 attack, which does come up when used in comparison to make her very big user in combination with the cover card themselves, Witchcrafter Madame There. There you can, during damage calc, reveal any number of spell cards to, basically you reveal any number of spell cards with different names, and then your attacking Witchcrafter, or your battling spellcaster monster, gains 1000 attack and defense for each spell revealed. And then during either player's turn, you can discard 1 spell to negate the effects of all your opponent's currently controlled monsters, but only the face-up ones. And then it's a hard once per turn on each effect, so you can resolve both in the same turn. So you can reveal a load of spells, make your Hain really, really big, and then if they have some kind of protection effect, then you can use Vere's effect and discard one of the spells that you have revealed to boost, to negate that monster. So it's a decent enough way to get around Dragoon, so long as you can bait out that first negate. And then we're playing one copy of Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. She's kind of like a reactionary play to if your opponent tries to do anything to your Witchcrafters. If your opponent activates a card effect that targets a spellcaster monster control or targets it for an attack, target one card your opponent controls or a Witchcrafter spell in your grave, special summon this card, and return that targeted card to the hand so you get a resource back from the graveyard. Or you can, like, get rid of a problem card. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, you just kind of pick whichever one is most applicable at the time. And then during your opponent's standby phase, she bounces back to the hand, but she's huge, she's on 28. In combination with Ver, she gets very, very big, very, very fast. Obviously, you're only playing a small account at the high levels simply because they are easy enough to access thanks to the lower levels. So that does give us room to play your Cyframe package. And that is the only hand trap that I am main decking. And that's simply because this has a really, really good interaction where you tribute your lower level Witchcrafters, tribute a Shmieta, you pay cost, your opponent ashes it. Because they tribute for cost, you can now Gamma them. So, yeah, that's why I'm playing Gamma. Room is quite tight in the deck. You need to run a lot of spells. So there wasn't really all too much in the way of room for other hand traps. So a lot of them are in the side deck. Then we're playing 3 copies of Witchcrafter Creation. This is your Rota. Add any Witchcrafter monster from your deck to your hand, and then during the end phase, all the spells have this effect. If you control a Witchcrafter monster, add this card to your hand, but you can only use one effect each per turn. So if you activate the effect Search, you can't add it back during the end phase. By controlling a Witchcrafter, you would have to add it back during your opponent's end phase. But you could, like, mill this to the grave with Shmieta and then add it back to your hand during the end phase so you can use it on the next turn. Really, really nice. Obviously, it's a Rota, searches you your resources. Then we are playing 2 copies of Unveiling. This special summons a Witchcrafter monster from your hand, and then your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your spellcaster effects for the rest of the turn. So that's really, really helpful. And then again, it has the spell recovery effect. This one being a quick play means you can, if you've drawn the Ver, surprise your opponent with, oh, cool, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to activate this, I'm going to special summon my Ver, and then I'm going to use this effect to negate, or I'm going to boost her defense so that she doesn't get destroyed by battle. So it's a really, really nice card, hence we're playing 2 copies. And then for our one-offs, 1 Witchcrafter Holiday, it's Monster Reborn. 1 Witchcrafter By Street, this protects them from the first bit of destruction each turn, battle or card effect. And then as it's a continuous spell, the continuous spells have the effect where if you would discard a spell to activate the effect of Witchcrafter, you can send it from the field to the grave instead, and then during the end phase, if you've not used that effect, you can basically place it back onto the field. So if you've not sent it to the grave that turn, during the end phase, place it back on the field. The protection is really nice, and then obviously not having to worry about discarding cards and necessarily negging yourself, that's really, really nice. And then the final one-off is Witchcrafter Collaboration. This one basically turns your Witchcrafter into Utopia the Lightning, and then it can attack twice. So it can attack twice, and your opponent can activate spells or traps until the end of the damage step. It's basically good. You use it in conjunction with Ver. You make a Hain or the Aruru massive, really, really high attack, and then you just smack into something twice and deal a lot of damage. Then for our generic spells, we're playing 3 copies of Pot of Desires, because you could play Extrav, but it does clash with Petore, and I generally prefer having the utility of the extra deck. As little as you go into it, it is nice to have. Do feel free in your own personal list to swap these out for Extravs, because the only other sort of draw spells you're running are 2 copies of Pot of Duality, because you can resolve your float effects during your opponent's turn. So you are free on your turn to normal summon a Witchcrafter, activate Duality, add a spell to hand that you might need, and then during your opponent's turn, discard a spell to tag out and float into your big boss monsters. So this doesn't actually clash with the deck as much as it may look at first glance. 1 upstart, it's a spell deck, this card's great. And then we've got our other power one called by the grave. Really upset this went to 1, but you gotta do what you gotta do. The deck can go first or it can go second. I'm kind of leaning more into going second just because it's the deck is weaker going second. So I play a lot more powerful going second cards, try and balance that factor out, because obviously going first you have access to a skill drain. So call by just makes sure that you can get the Ver onto the field to protect your field, so that you can then basically build up a resource engine that your opponent can't outmatch. 1 reborn, pretty self-explanatory. And then for our going second power cards, 3 copies of Super Polymerization. This clears most meta boards at the moment. There is normally a Super Poly target for whatever your opponent may be playing, so definitely recommend running this in a Witchcrafter deck. Discard 1, you will always have discard fodder because you can add your spells back, and then obviously it is in itself a spell, so it does act as spell fodder for your Witchcrafter effects. So it has a lot of nice synergies, and again, that's another reason why I'm not running Extrav, just because I like having the access to Super Poly targets, and I don't want to run nothing but Super Poly targets, so I run 1 of each of my targets. So I don't really want to risk banishing those off of the Extravagance. 2 copies of Dark Rune No More. I side the 3rd copy, just because, of course, going first, while this is discard fodder, it's not preferable to see. And you do still want to kind of opt to go first, so you can set Super Poly, you can't really set Dark Rune No More. So we're running 2. And we are also running 2 copies of Mystic Mine, because again, it's a spell to discard. It limits your opponent's plays. Going second, this really locks them out, because you're usually just going to sit on 1 Witchcrafter, which is really hard, of course, to get a huge multi-negate board all the way down to 1 monster. This eats up negates like no business. Really, really nice card. Definitely think it's worth running. I don't side the 3rd copy, but that is something you could do if you decided that was what you wanted to do, or you could main a 3rd copy. It's generally up to you. You could end with, say, a Ver and Mystic Mine going first, and if your opponent attempts to stun you out, then you're sitting on a 2800 body and you can just chill there. And if they summon more monsters, then you have a skill drain that's live, as well as already having Mystic Mine on the field. So yeah, that is something you can do if you happen to draw it. You could also play Secret Village Spellcasters, as well as set rotation and terraforming, so that you had sort of more of a field spell package. That could be something that might be worth testing. If you do decide to test that out, do let me know down below how it works out for you. And then the final card in the main deck is the one Witchcrafter Patronus. We are playing this because it basically recycles your banished spellcasters, because obviously you banish them to get their secondary effects, and then when you do so, it also rotates for any Witchcrafter spell to your hand, so you get discard fodder and you get resources. And then if it's popped, except the turn it's sent there, you can banish it, target any number of banished spells, but the only card that really banishes spells from your grave in this deck is the Jenny, so that effect's a bit less relevant, but the effect it has on the field is incredible, so it's definitely one of the cards that you want to try and search out when you get the chance. And that's it for the main deck. So it's a 40 card main deck, obviously a lot of spells, but I find that this mix, you tend to open 1 low level Witchcrafter, or the search spell, or some form of way into your low level, and then just a load of spells to use as sort of discard fodder. But it's a really, really cool deck. It's very aesthetically pleasing as well. So let's jump straight on into the extra deck, and we'll see just what we're doing with these monsters. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of super poly targets. So for our extra deck, we are running 1 copy of Salamangreat Almirage, because most of your monsters fit the criteria of a normal summon monster with 1000 or less attack. The only normal summon in the deck that doesn't is the Shmieta, and the protection is alright, it does sometimes come up. I did debate running Secure Gardener as well, but couldn't really find much room for it. But no, the protection is really quite nice and helps you if you are 1 material short of making, say, Avramax, because this is a link one that you can just normal summon a monster and turn into it. So yeah, Almirage is definitely worth the first spot in the extra deck. Up next, we have Link 2, IP Masquerena. You don't make this too much, but say you Gamma, you can then turn them into the IP Masquerena, and that gives you a nice piece of interruption during your opponent's turn, because it gives you access to your Unicorn and also to your Nightmare Cerberus. So we're playing those two. Here they are. Pretty straightforward while you're playing these. Destroy a special summon monster, and shuffle back a card into the deck. Really, really nice pieces of removal for a deck that can sometimes struggle on that front. We are also playing the one Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax. This is basically my stand-in for the Selene Access Cody combo that some people are running. I kind of picked this deck up on the side. I didn't really want to have to invest into an access code just for a more casual fun deck. And I found Avramax does the job, because the way that you would make access code would be using Gamma plus Driver to make Hauka Fibrax, and then climb into the Selene, which would then make the access code. But just as equally, you can make an IP Masquerena, summon out 2 Witchcrafters, make a Cerberus, and then make the Avramax. So it is possible to make this guy. It's about as equally dependent on hand as the access code play was, and this guy is arguably just as good at clearing boards and applying pressure. That's why we're going to run him. Along the same lines, we also have the Borrow Sword, slightly harder to make, but slightly better at ending games. Then we have Appaloosa. You don't really make this too much, it's just kind of there in case the opportunity presents itself, in case your opponent Nibiru's you, and you happen to do some other things, I don't know. Over a longer game, you could make this and just sort of stun your opponent out a bit. I may cut it, however, because it doesn't seem to show up too much, and Ver kind of just does the same thing. So yeah, this spot definitely needs further testing. Then on to our fusions, our super poly targets. So for our super poly targets, we're playing pretty straightforward. Mud Dragon, Dragos Tapelia, Marmaduke. These are your kind of more generic targets. Mud Dragon is your most generic target. Any 2 monsters with the same attribute, different types. That hits quite a lot in the current format. Dragos Tapelia outs the Dogmatica board because it gets rid of the window. And Marmaduke can get rid of any sort of weird, crazy link spam decks. Then for our more niche targets, these are geared highly towards my locals. We have the one Draco Acquist, because there's quite a few Infernoble running around. And then we have Invoked Elysium, because there is a lot of Invoked Dogmatica running around, and this clears both the window and the Mechaba. So if your locals has a lot of Invoked Dogmatica, definitely recommend running one of these as a super poly target, because it's a nice big beat stick that also wipes the field. And then for our last 3 cards, we are running the one Baguska, because we have you can overlay 2 Shmieta for it. The one Tornado Dragon, along similar logic, just as spell and trap removal, before we get the Cosmic Cyclones in game 2 and 3. And the one Cyframe Lord Omega for the Gamma package. And that's about it for the extra deck. It's very straightforward, but as you can see, there is sort of enough utility here to where running extra was somewhat counterintuitive to what I wanted to do with it. But yeah, definitely I'm happy with the extra deck, with the exception of the Appaloosa, which, like I said, requires a little bit of further testing. Beyond that, very, very happy with it. Okay, and then last but not least, just my side deck. It's a very basic side deck. There is one pretty interesting card choice in here, and I'll go over that one. But just on general terms, 2 copies of DD Crow, because you can get rid of the Alistair, you can get rid of Miscellaneousaurus in the Dino matchup. I just find that this pops up quite a bit. If you have Lanciers, play Lanciers. I don't currently have a set. Otherwise, I would definitely be playing Lancia over DD Crow. Then our spell and trap removal. 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This outs Mystic Mine, this outs Crackdown. It basically outs sort of any nasty back row that may be lurking. And does come up quite a bit considering that we do have players at my locals that like to side in Mystic Mine, and we also like to play Mystic Mine. Sometimes you have to get rid of your own Mystic Mine. You know, it does come up. And then this is my sort of interesting card. This is 3 copies of Quiet Life, and this basically says you have to activate it at the start of your main phase 1, and only if you control no monsters. If any player normal summons or sets a monster, then that player cannot special summon this turn, and if any player special summons a monster, then they cannot normal summon or set that turn. So if you have a deck like Infernoble, where your normal summon is needed to go into a sold most of the time, you lock them out of special summoning, and if they special summon the red layer first, they now can't normal summon Connector to get Dolphin. So it shuts off a lot of plays. It is unsearchable, but it is a spell, so if you draw it later on in the game, you can use it as discard fodder for your Witchcrafters. It's just something that's really, really cool and quite spicy. Then we've got 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. This is if we know we're going second, we play this, we get draw power, we can get rid of problem cards, things like that. The 3rd copy of Dark Ruler No More, also for if we're going second. And then, just as some extra hand traps, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. You can also side this in if you know you're going first, and side out the Dark Ruler No Mores, things like that. There's definitely times where you want to side this in. And then finally, the 1 copy of the Red Reboot. If you have Harpy's Feather Duster, definitely throw that in somewhere. But this is Reboot's definitely worth running because there's a lot of imperms running around, and there's a lot of Solemns actually, as well as Dogmatica Punishment. Dogmatica Punishment, nasty against this deck because so many of the monsters have such low printed attack points and rely on Leave There to modify them. So Reboot getting rid of the Dogmatica Punishment is pretty important every now and again. But yeah, that just about, I believe, rounds everything up for this deck profile. So I do hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you found this list interesting and relatively different enough from what's kind of assumed to be the standard for a Witchcrafter deck profile. I hope you guys can try it out. This deck is pretty cheap, considering all the reprints from the Megatins. You don't have to play Triple Tactics Talent in your side. It's just something that I have access to, so I am going to play it. But it's perfectly up to you guys what you decide to play for your side deck. Cater it to your own locals. Main deck is incredibly cheap, guys. I've picked it up in a single day, and I highly recommend you guys do. It's really, really fun, really, really interesting. And as always, guys, keep playing. Leave a thumbs up if you've enjoyed. Share the video if you really think it's worth that. And leave a comment if you have any thoughts, criticisms, or just want to know more about the deck. And I will try and get some kind of follow-up on this deck because I find it that interesting on just how it performs next week at locals. But yeah, as always, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next time.